Is there any expected edits going forward, Mark?
We'll talk about it when we get to that point on the agenda, because it's a little bit complicated.
Hi, Bob, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Kristen Swinton,
Present.
Jasmine Higgins, present. Michael Stammel. Here. Sue Costanza,
Here.
Greg Warner.
421. But that was the code.
Gary's
It's on the
out,
board. Yeah. it's on the-
Jalon Moses.
Gila Moses is,
421.
Gila Moses.
she might be running a little late. I heard the traffic was a bear out there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the one guest online, Bob Ryan.
And of course, Ray,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, in-house, yep. I'm new to this, so just bear with me if I make.
You're doing great.
Errors, thank you, Mark. So we have three, action items, the first three items, the first item, approval of April 16th, 2025, minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review? All right. Questions or comments? Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make that motion.
Laura,
Second.
second. All in favor of approval of April 16th, 2025 minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Our next, action item, financial statements through May 31, 2025. And, Mark has additional information on that, if everyone had, grabbed that on the way in, Mark.
sure. The version of the packet I emailed out, there were some mistakes in memo 2510 about the financials. I've included the corrected memo, the correct information in your packet. So what I'll share with you today is the corrected information. So we are still processing the Q1 billings. We have received partial payments. We're still waiting on payments from Albany County, I believe.
Albany and Schenectady, I believe.
Schenectady County. Through April, Berkshire's actual expenses for secure detention just under 2 million. The total estimated expenses for the SV operation is about 2.4 million. On the SSD side, Berkshire's actual expenses are just under 3 million. And the total estimated expenses through May are 3.7 million. Any questions on the financials?
Thank you, Mark. With no, questions or comments on the, financials, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second. All in favor of approving the financial statements, say aye. Aye, approved. All right, our last item for action. 2023 to 2024 audit engagement letter memo 25-11.
Okay, so we chatted a little bit about this at our last meeting. Tom White, our financial officer, was here. Basically give a detailed explanation of some of the unreconcilable amounts. We're having a challenge with our auditing firm to give them an explanation about what they were. The memo basically outlines what happened, which resulted in those amounts that were difficult for us to reconcile. So in a nutshell, CDYCI's previous accountant, Tim Canty, you may remember back in 2017, 2018, when we changed from pay-as-you-go to our new quarterly reimbursement model and the establishment of the specialized secure detention facility. At that time, I didn't know as much about accounting as I do now, and in hindsight, it's always 2020. So I asked him to establish two QuickBooks accounts so that the accounts for secure detention and specialized secure detention would be two separate QuickBooks files. However, payments for the whole operation, regardless of whether it was secure detention or specialized secure detention, were only being drawn from the secure detention side. So in accounting terms, you're supposed to do a correction transaction where it says the SSD owes the SD the funds and vice versa, so they clear each other out. So when these changes were happening, I brought Tom White on board. Tim Canty was no longer with us. I asked him and he suggested to establish a new QuickBooks account, make the SD and SSD two classes of the same corporation so that you would not have the problem of having to correct those transactions when you draw money out of one account versus the other. So he did do that, and in the process, we had these transactions that remained where they were never reconciled against what was actually true. So they have remained on our books since 2017 and 2018. So never been a problem with Bonadio before until this audit. And so they really wanted us to figure out and settle, what these were. It was very difficult for us to do that because Tim Canty's no longer here. The off-book financial records that he established, we don't no longer have access to. But Tom and I were working with our auditors to provide an explanation. We provided them with this explanation. They said, well, if you come to the end of a year with a fund balance and you're a not-for-profit organization, isn't that money due back to the counties? And that was one of their bones of contention. As you may recall, however, since the facility was established in 1997, and this is when we were allowed to do such things, we could charge counties, particularly Oneida County, for any of their unused bed days. You may strike your memory. So Oneida County made a contract with them, and they said if they reserved a bed, if their reserved bed was not occupied by another county, they had to pay us for that bed day, regardless of whether they used the bed or not. So over time, we accrued, revenue that we would then use for capital improvements and repairs. Similarly, we also were able to charge outside counties an additional fee that was not reimbursable to them. So any county that was outside of our 4-county region, we charged them an extra $10 per bed day. And those charges were in effect from 1997 to 2017, so 20 years or so. 20, 30 years so we do have a fund balance for those two research. So I told them that didn't seem to be satisfying enough to them, so I figured we were at an impasse. And we were not gonna be successful completing an audit with the auditing firm. So I put this memo together, hit send, then in my inbox, boom, I get the draft financial statement for the 2022 audit. And on page 16 of the draft financial statements, it just it mentions some significant findings, which their findings are correct. Essentially, we had these amounts in our books since 2017 that were unreconciled. And their corrective actions, or they have a blank there for corrective actions. I don't feel we need any corrective actions. I've explained to you what they were, why we had those discrepancies and what we have done to cure them. So we could do one of two things with the 2022 audit. There is no requirement for us to have an annual audit like this. So we can choose to just not have a 2022 audit, or we can continue with Bonadio and I can provide them with the additional information to close the books on 2022 and establish some corrective actions related to these unreconcilable amounts that we've been holding in our books for so long. Or we can just choose to punt on 2022 and start fresh with 2023. Which was originally the subject of this board action, is to sign engagement letters with the new auditing firm to proceed with the 2023 and 2024 audit. It has been challenging, and I'm sure both ways, working with Bonadio on this particular audit. Because what's frustrating is that these amounts had never come up in any of the prior audits that they were doing. And, you know, in hindsight, it would have been much better if they came up sooner because we would have been able to, you know, fix it. But since so much time has passed, it was very difficult for us to do that. So I hope my explanation of what those unreconcilable amounts were is satisfying to you. But I guess the question related to this is that I would like to approve the execution of the new engagement letters for 2023 and 2024 audit. But the other action that's not on the agenda, but that we should discuss is what do you want to do with the 2022 audit? We could certainly finish it because it's just completing some managerial statements in the existing 2022 financial statements. And we can bring it before the board for adoption at our next meeting, or we can punt on it.
What does the controller's office say? Do you talk to the controller's office now about it?
The state controller's office? As far as I'm aware, there's no requirement for us and Bob, you might know better than I do, for us to report an audit to the state as a nonprofit corporation. There is an argument to be made that we could be subject to public authorities office and their regulations. We could be subject to Paris reporting, public authorities, whatever that acronym is. We don't appear on any of their lists, and I'm not gonna call them and ask them. But I mean, I think, in my opinion, we might as well just complete the 2022 audit, call it a day and move on. So that we have a continuum of financial statements throughout the years. And which I can proceed with them to do. Yeah,
Why does this auditing firm keep going back to 22? There's
So
supposed to be that conflict between auditors that are focused on 22, correct?
so all of these unreconcilable amounts, in order to bring our general ledger up to date, appear as income in in 2022, so the most recent year for our audits. Because were not assigned to any period of time or fiscal year, they now come on our books in 2022. So they were like, well, you're showing almost $300,000 in revenue for these unreconcilable amounts, you know, that doesn't seem appropriate. So we had to work with them on this explanation about what happened and combining of the QuickBooks files and how YCI used to generate revenue for other premiums and fees, et cetera. But we're still on the 2022 audit. This is how long it's taken us to work with Bonadio on getting these financial statements squared away.
So what is their advice going forward?
Their advice, can I borrow do you have a copy of it? Forgot to grab one. Thank you. On page 16 of this, which still needs to be completed. Which is essentially the last printed page. This is the statement of findings. So their findings are the year-end closing procedures should result in complete and accurate records that support basic financial statements, footnotes, et cetera. The condition is this is what they found, which is what I just discussed. Many schedules provided for the audit required correction upon auditor's review. The correction was related to those unreconcilable amounts from when we put the QuickBooks files together. And Tom was pulling his hair out to try to track it back to something, and there just wasn't anything there other than the fact that there were these things that came over from the combined QuickBooks files. Cause and effect, as part of our audit, we obtained CDYCI's trial balance. Upon reviewing the trial balance and schedules, we noted several significant issues with account balances that were later corrected by journal entries. So those issues with account balances were related to those transactions that were never corrected in the SSD accounts. And correcting by journal entry, which means you just go in there and you type in a number to make it zero out. And the recommendation, they say, we recommend that CDYCI take greater care in reconciling its accounts prior to the audit. And very reasonable recommendation.
Yeah.
All accounts should be reconciled. And then they have, what they were looking for me to do is put in a review of responsible officials and plan corrective actions. So if I were to propose a plan corrective action, I would essentially just say, we need to make sure we have no unreconcilable amounts at year end. And that would be the corrective action. And then the responsible parties would obviously be myself, the financial officer, and the treasurer.
I kind of like take exception to the recommendations, blame it on us whenever they're supposed to. I mean, we may have made a mistake, but they should have caught it long before now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
There's
that's
that.
for sure. I mean,
Disconnect. Not official,
yeah, and
different.
I can understand what you're saying and why you wanted to separate them, but you know, what is going to happen with the additional funds that now are that you're gonna zero out? What's the scope on that?
So if you look at page. Let's see. So if you look at page 9, you can see it on page 9. About in the area that says reconciliation of operating income to net cash provided by the operating activities. That number, $230,000, 966. That's the money from those unreconcilable amounts that hits our books this year, so it shows as net operating revenue. And that will just continue to be held as it has been in our bank and used for capital improvements as issues arise in the facility. Again, it's a remnant of when we were able to generate revenue by charging Oneida County and charging outside counties a $10 premium for staying in our facility. Now, the auditors had a sticking point and they said, well, if you don't owe this money to the counties, you must owe it to Berkshire. So, or you. So I did have them, and it's attached to the memo, I did have them write a letter that says we don't owe them anything. And certainly if we owed money to the counties, I think I would hear about it. Because the counties have to claim against specific amounts they can get reimbursed for, and if there's any discrepancy, believe me, they're not afraid to call and figure it out. So that tells me we don't owe the counties any money. This $230,000 is the remnant of the revenues that we were generating up until 2017. So.
But
That's
that
the-
$230,000 isn't something that we could use to minimize the additional costs that we're passing on to the counties. Since, you know, we're upping the cost to the counties this year, so that would take.
Yeah, I mean, I think operationally, and this is.
I mean, it's great to have the savings, don't get
Yeah,
me wrong.
back then, because the alternative, since we are a nonprofit organization without a lot of money in the bank, I mean, 230,000 plus whatever, you know, remnants of that revenue are available is good. But if something bad happens, we're still on the hook to fix it. So if we had an expense that was gonna cost, I don't know, $1 million or something like that, we would have to secure financing for that. Or get a loan or do something in order to pay for that. So I am in favor of having funds available to pay for
Well,
things
that's,
that happen.
that's the what if scenario, but
Yeah. I mean, the board, I mean, I don't know the logistics of providing a discount to the counties, because we have pretty much a fixed bill from Together for Youth for their operating expenses. Put all those operating expenses and just divide by the bed days. So if we were to somehow subsidize, it would just be like a payment to Berkshire so that they would lower their reported costs.
overall, it's not a big amount compared to what we need to do. I'm just glad it's in the positive and not the negative. Thank you.
Mhm.
Or anything else. Thank you for that report.
Sure. So, you know, again, board action is to authorize
So we're, let me get this straight, Mark. So we're voting on two things.
right,
We're voting on zeroing out the 230, moving it to operating expenses.
oh, no, we're not gonna take an action on that. I think,
We're not thinking it.
I think for the 2022, I want guidance from you guys, which is, and I think we have consensus, that let's complete the 2022. Regardless of, you know, what our auditors are saying in it, and just get that done, so we have a consistency of records. And then proceed with the 2023, 2024 audits with a new auditing firm. And then I'll present the 2022 audit for action at the next meeting.
So we're voting on completing the 2022 audit and you says engaging here, but we'll be hiring a new auditing firm.
Right.
For 2023 and 2024.
Correct.
Is that, how do we do that? It's like, go to bid, what do you do?
So yeah, I asked Tom to put out essentially a request for proposals or invitation for bids from different auditing firms. We received a number of responses back. After reviewing the responses with Tom, it was his recommendation that we select this firm to complete the audit.
And Mark, if I could just weigh in, it is my recommendation that the board does approve completing the 22 audit, as you explained. And also it is my recommendation that you do seek a new auditor since this issue has been missed in previous years by the existing auditing firm. And that could actually be part of your corrective action plan, that you'll seek a new auditor in order to identify issues in a more timely manner.
That's so passive aggressive. I love it, Bob.
Sealed.
So, seems like a very complicated matter, very simplified though. So, looks like, we'd be voting to close out the 2022 audit and to engage with a new auditing firm for 2023 and 2024 audits.
Correct.
Any questions on this? Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Second. This is approved, to complete the 2022 and seek alternate auditing firm for 23 and 2024. Thank you, everyone. That's our last voting thing. Now we have several report outs.
So I'm pleased to report on the facility use memo that we're currently operating at 39, AKA 37 beds. 2 beds still remain offline in dorm D until they are repaired. But we did send an announcement out through the New York State Sheriff's Association and through the 3rd and 4th District Court administrators to let the judges and the law enforcement agencies know that we're operating at capacity. The stated capacity in that memo is male beds between 36 and 39 and female beds between 3 and 6. With the caveat that the facility has the discretion to quote unquote flip dorms to accommodate population needs. On the website, we don't show that we have more than 3 female beds. Because we don't wanna, say that we have 6 and operate at 3, and then somebody says, well, I have 2 females, where can I put them? I think if we have need from within our 4 counties, specifically for females, that would require us to open up a 6-bed dorm for females. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We don't want to put the expectation out there that we're always operating with 6 female beds. But it's good news. How the staff doing with the 39? I see you have 3 youth on dorm A.
Absolutely, yeah, doing good. We have a lot of staff, we've been opening up the overtime, so we have a lot of staff in the facility, doing well. We haven't had too many issues. It's just moving people around right now.
Good.
It's the most use we've ever had in the facility.
Yeah, over 24. So we had 27, right?
27.
And congratulations, or not congratulations, but Schenectady County is almost on par with Albany County in April and May in terms of bed days, which I've never seen before. So that's all good news. So that's the facility use report.
Next item, Crazy H Capital Project, close out memo 25-13.
I just wanted to have the board records reflect some closure for the project and have our records reflect some of the information about the project, so it just doesn't get lost in the ether. So essentially, that's just what this closeout memo is. You heard all of this at the rededication ceremony. About doubling the space of the rec yard, visitation and family visitation spaces were added. Completely brought up to current code. Obviously, new state-of-the-art technology upgrades, increasing the number of security cameras from 8 to 136. Rooftop photovoltaic system that provides power to the facility. And really, hopefully, a new facility that we don't have to touch for another 30 years, because nobody wants to do that again. So that's all that's in the memo.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
So, there's been some changes with our education, delivery system, and Luke will update us with an education update 2514.
Sure. So as many of you know, BOCES has not been successful in recruiting teachers. And so we have, together Youth has taken over the recruiting of teachers. We'll be hiring the teachers directly with us. We started doing that recruiting, utilizing a lot of social media and targeted advertising. Particularly, we're looking at Job Corps as they would likely be shutting down, and there are a lot of teachers and staff could be available for us, so we're utilizing that. Our first teacher, our GED program, the teacher cleared yesterday, so we will be starting, I believe, is that starting in a week? Yeah, a week and a half. That teacher will be starting, and we do have a contract with BOCES, so they will be providing technical assistance and testing support for the GED program, so we'll be able to get that off the ground and be able to work your GEDs. Next week, I am meeting with South Colony School District about credit recovery. Tim Backus, who is no longer with South Colony, is acting as an intermediary to help us navigate that with South Colony. They're very interested in figuring out the logistics of that. So we are meeting next week. I'm starting to talk about regions and transcripts they'll be providing. So we're very close to getting that finalized, and we'll have it finalized by the time school starts. And Ray is just going to talk about our summer program.
Yeah, so we,
So I had a question, Luke.
Sure.
So, the teacher is employed, by Families Together, and since there's a contract with BOCES, it's almost the same as if a BOCES teacher was there.
No, so the contract with BOCES is only for the GED program.
Okay,
That's to provide the technical assistance and the testing ability so that we can award GEDs.
they need to come in for that, or our teacher?
Our teacher is doing that. Our teacher will be doing all the teaching.
Great.
They'll just be in consultation with BOCES, providing the records of things that are going on, so BOCES can make sure that we get the right testing and that the right awards come through so that the youth receive their GED.
Okay.
So the BOCES is providing the curriculum, is that?
They're providing the technical support. The curriculum, we have the curriculum. We know what the curriculum is going to be, that's available, but it's providing the technical support, and the testing capability.
Good.
So the first line in here, it says they had declined to extend their contract.
Yes, so their contract to
Two separate
recruit teachers.
Contract,
Yes, so their contract initially was to recruit teachers.
right,
So we're ending that contract.
right.
We started a new contract between this does not involve CDYCI, it involves just Together for Youth and BOCES for the technical assistance for the GED program.
With the technical end.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
and just to add that we had a great interview yesterday, 2 days ago with a teacher. She's coming in today for a second interview, so it's looking
Very excited,
well.
yes.
Our summer program, educational program just started yesterday with the Albany Center Gallery. And it's an art project for 38 sessions for all the way up until August. It was a great day yesterday. The kids were invested, staff were invested, and we answered all the concerns that they had coming into the facility in terms of safety and things like that. So it went really well yesterday. The art projects, like I said, it goes throughout the whole summer. Kids are gonna start on a project from day one and then build throughout the weeks. So we're definitely looking forward to that.
What's the process of identifying a partner or enrichment organization? Like our institute or, for example.
So like how we got Albany Center Gallery, we have a team, marketing team in Together for Youth that builds relationships with the community. That's how we got Trent Griffin, who's provided classes to our youth. Also, that's how we developed the Chris Wilson Foundation partnership, where they can provide the master plan program, which we'll be providing again next spring. So our internal department Together for Youth is seeking out partners with community support us. But if anyone has any ideas.
And then at times, we do have people just randomly call just to get some advice or about our program and things like that, feedback, so that helps too. Because then we can dive deeper into them as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions on education?
I think we very important. Site visit and secure specialized security pension evaluation memo 515.
Right. Yeah, these are summaries of a couple of site visits that were conducted by OCFS and SCOC. I will freely admit that I asked the AI to summarize the findings of the reports. And just pasted them to the memos here, but just give us an overview of what the findings were and some of the corrective actions.
Sure. The first is from SCOC is the minimum standards evaluation. As you may remember, a year and a half ago, we had the first half of our minimum standards evaluation done, which required a lot of procedure and policy correction just to meet their standards. Our practice was good, but our policies and procedures needed support. This is the second half of that. So they've come in multiple times to do reviews of our policies and procedures, and you can see the ones that we have to work on. Almost all of it is policy and procedure work we have to do. We also have to develop a classification system for how, when you render the facility and how they get placed. That's a little difficult for us because we do it based on a lot of factors. It's going to be hard to develop, but we're going to develop a classification system working closely with SCOC. Our findings are due to them, or our corrections are due to them on July 16th. And so we will have them all done. Ray and his team are working very hard on that.
Yeah, we definitely received it. We've already started working on that. Some of the smaller issues like the security door issues, key control, storage of our supplies, health items and things like that. We've already taken care of that. And then some of the bigger items, with policies and things like that, the senior director, myself, the two assistant directors are definitely working on those issues, such as revising our incoming and outgoing calls, contraband, things like that. So those things are gonna be addressed in a timely fashion. And then obviously, once it's all done, we're gonna follow up with some training as well, just to keep everybody on the same page.
One thing I'm not clear about is what the state's policy is in terms of inspecting mail. Now, I appreciate the use right to privacy, but you know, mail has been used to traffic drugs into the
And
facility.
yes, we do inspect the mail. When the mail comes in, our case managers open it, but they utilize gloves because there was an issue in Albany County Jail where
Right,
then it's photocopied, destroyed, and the photocopies are given.
okay.
We found drugs embedded in.
No,
Yeah.
it has been.
It has happened, not in our facility, in the jails, it has happened, yes. And so recognizing that, we're very careful.
And that photocopying process and having staff open the mail, that does not run afoul of OCFS's standards.
No.
Okay, I mean, I'd rather err on the side of safety than privacy. Alright, cool. And was there anything in the OCFS?
Yeah, so OCFS, you'll notice a lot of those things are small things, you know, like the toilet paper was empty and things like that. They come in and they do their reviews. Ray immediately, his team immediately address those things. Ray provides a written response on what's going on. And if there are larger issues, obviously provide corrective action, but most of those small things that we
Yeah, and procedure things, and like I said, we've already tackled a lot of smaller issues like with door security, things like that. We've changed sort of locks, so we're on top of it. Like I said, the bigger issues is, you know, with the policies and procedures together, so we're definitely gonna address that right away.
And we welcome OCFS coming in, you know, they have a new set of eyes, sometimes you get in the weeds, you don't see this, so we welcome them coming in, helping us make sure that we are providing the best environment for our youth.
Between the two of them, it seems like you've got your homework cut out.
Yeah.
Sure.
You say you've taken care of a lot, and that's great, but I'd like to see an updated list.
Sure, and we will provide you, what we will do is once we provide a response, you'll get the full response, so that
Okay.
you know everything
Thank
that's
you.
been done.
And they'll have more input anyway, so. It'll just change.
Subject to change.
Exactly.
Um,
We know how that works. Yes.
Just one additional item, I think this included some facility operation, and we already talked about some. Agency report out together for nuclear ready.
Anything else to talk about?
Yeah, just start, some of the things that we already mentioned. Right now, our focus is on the summer educational program with the art program that we talked about. Although we have less resources coming in the building for the summer, our evening is to keep the kids in program and, you know, move them around throughout the facility, the gym, ATM, the courtyard, the classrooms, and things like that. So main focus right now is our summer educational program.
I get that question, Mayor Luke. So with the additional beds, do we expect any youth to be sentenced and permanently stay housed there?
They could be, I mean,
They could,
Yeah,
when that happens, the
older
state
kids.
pays the rate,
No, still,
still the county,
it's
still the county, even though they're sentenced?
Mhm.
Okay.
until they move on to the,
Yeah,
their
and it's like
next facility.
15 days before they pick them up,
And-
OCFS.
For that to happen, what would it be specific on the order that they remain in that facility? Okay.
Yeah, so once they get sentenced, OCFS makes a plan to pick them up like within 14 to 20 days. And then they'll go to a facility or like long-term till they reach 21.
But if they've been there for maybe several months and they got a new sentence, then they could serve it out there.
Yeah, the judge can sentence them to up to a year in secure detention and not have to send them to an OCFS facility.
But we have multiple kids who are sentenced and staying with us for the time period until they can move on to. ours.
Okay, thank you.
And that's based on age, right?
And the good news is that, with the increased capacity, it's more likely than not that costs per bed day will go down. Because the more use of the facility, the more bed days, it's just a mathematical equation. You take the bed days and divide it by the operating costs. So the more bed days we have in the facility, the lower the costs are. So the past year, we've been experiencing really high costs as Berkshire Farm is staffed up, but we haven't been operating anywhere near at full capacity. In fact, we have been operating at less than full capacity for the duration of the construction project. So now that we have the full 39 beds, I anticipate that per diem cost, the bed day cost will go down.
Yeah, and a large number of our youth are now from out of the 4 counties, which will assist in their costs.
So I'd just like to also thank Luke and Ray and the AODs for making the rededication ceremony a success. Thank you for getting the water, being Johnny on the spot. It got hot really quick out there.
Sorry, I missed it.
It's so bad.
I definitely underestimated the weather.
I was like, I should have anticipated where the sun was going.
So I think not everybody was able to make it. Will there be additional tours this summer?
Yeah, if anybody is interested in a tour, you can reach out to me. If we could group together, that'd be great. But yeah, anytime you'd like a tour, we could certainly take you through.
And I know there was talk early on about having our meetings there.
Yes, we can look at October. The main thing with having a meeting there, which I'm sure those who attend the event can attest, is that parking is at a premium at the facility when it's fully staffed.
And
But
Wednesday is our,
Wednesday is the big.
Wednesday is the big day when we have all the staff.
So it's not a good day to have that meeting.
Not there. It's
Tough
a
to
good day
get
to
from
have a
there to
meeting.
here anyway for the next meeting.
Mhm,
It'd be tough to get from there to here for the next meeting
mhm.
on the same day.
Well, we'd
We'd
have
have to have
both
the
meetings
Both
there,
meetings.
which adds to the number of people that would need to park there, which is complicated, complicated proposition.
Parking wasn't considered then when we.
It was considered for the staff, but not using the visitation space as a conference center for our board, you know.
Just one quick question, summer programs. Now, I understand the staff who are the, those there, using the facility, the juveniles at the facility. Probably get out of there to go for legal stuff and medical stuff and things of that nature. Is there any recreational stuff that would take them out of the facility at any time?
That's not
Because-
right.
So they're there for everything.
They're there for everything.
Okay.
That's why having the expanded rec yard is much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Very informative meeting today. Thank you, everyone. Was there any additional information or business from anyone? Thank you all for coming. So we need a motion to adjourn.
Mhm.
So
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion, all approved, motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Next meeting, October 15th, and presumably it will be here.